In 1950, no American family sat down to eat without praying first. Today, most families don't do it even once a week. Number 1 on this list is not a prayer. It is the condition without which the other 14 could not exist. I went through devotion manuals from the 1950s and more than 200 first-hand accounts. Number 11 has an exact date of death, November of 1966. And number 4 was so private that most children never knew their mother did it every single night before serving dinner. You think these traditions disappeared because America lost its faith? The faith barely changed. What disappeared was something else, and nobody saw it leave the table. Number 15, the voice. Everyone knew by heart. You didn't learn that prayer. You inherited it. Before the first plate, the voices blended together in the kitchen. Your father's deep voice marked the first verse. Your mother followed half a beat later. Your younger brothers and sisters murmured what they could, and the amen fell on the table like a signal. Now, spoon in hand, never before. Nobody taught you the words. They grew inside you. Then came a Sunday, sometime in the mid-60s, when the priest spoke from the pulpit about personal prayer instead of memorized prayer. That same night, somebody hesitated before the first verse, and the chorus took half a second longer to start. It was never the same again. This week, one single sentence on a piece of paper in the center of the table. Everyone together, just once, before the last amen faded into the air of your kitchen. The hands on that table were doing something you believed was as old as the church itself. It wasn't. Number 14, the circle that closed with hands. Your father's hand was rough. It closed over yours before grace and stayed there until the amen. In the last second, before he let go, there was always a small squeeze. Every single night. That small squeeze was the only way a man of that generation knew how to tell you I love you without having to say the words. That custom wasn't ancient. It came into American Catholic kitchens during the years of the Council, borrowed from Protestant families next door. What it didn't survive was March of 2020. Contact became dangerous. The hands stayed on the laps. They never came back to the table. 30 seconds of held hands before your next dinner. No words. The circle was horizontal. Before the circle, there was a sound in that kitchen that ruled over all of you. And it was not a human voice. Number 13, the chair that asked for silence without saying a word. Your father didn't announce grace. He only pulled his chair back slightly, cleared his throat once, and the entire kitchen went still. The forks stopped in midair. The eyes dropped to the empty plate. Your brothers stopped kicking each other under the table. Then, always the same prayer. One ordinary night, your father no longer cleared his throat. He just sat down, looked at his plate, and started to eat. Nobody said anything. Everybody noticed. Assign the voice of grace to a different person every night. The head of the table is no longer a seat. It is a turn. There was something else that disappeared when the head of the table began to empty out. Something said after the last spoonful, not before the first one. You've been believing for 50 years that grace was a single prayer. It was 2. Number 12, the prayer your mother spoke when nobody was listening anymore. The first prayer everyone said together. The second one your mother said alone, with 2 dirty plates in her hands and the hot water of the sink already running in the kitchen. The chairs were already moving. Your brothers were getting up. And she, on her feet, spoke the last words of a prayer almost nobody listened to anymore. We give you thanks, Lord, for these and all your gifts. That prayer at the end, was older than the one at the beginning. The earliest Christians did not pray before eating. They prayed after. What your family called the tradition was the second version. The first one your mother kept, alone, while she cleared the plates. Tonight, before you carry your plate to the sink, say out loud one single sentence, what the best part of the day was. That's it. There was a day of the week, however, when that same kitchen smelled different from early in the afternoon. Number 11. The smell that told you what day it was without checking the calendar. You knew by the air. The moment you walked into the apartment on a Friday afternoon, you didn't need to check the calendar. The hot oil, the garlic, the salted cod that smelled like nothing else in the week. Your nose told you before anyone else did. That Friday had lasted more than 1,100 years. Since the year 866, no Catholic over the age of 7 had risen from a Friday table having tasted meat. On November 18, 1966, the American bishop signed a document lifting the obligation. The following Friday, meat sales in supermarkets registered an anomalous spike no executive had predicted. 1,100 years fell in 7 days. 2 Fridays later, the hallway of your building no longer smelled like cod. This Friday, cook one single meatless meal so the week has texture again. Before the smell, before the burner was even lit, there was something else that happened in that kitchen every night, and it lasted exactly 3 seconds. Number 10. The 3 seconds the entire kitchen stopped breathing, the noise of the chairs, the clinking of the forks, the steam rising from the plates, and suddenly, nothing. Total silence. 3 seconds that felt eternal when you were a child. Your eyes closed, but your eyelids still aware of the yellow light from the bulb. Your head tilted toward the empty plate. The only thing you knew was that after that silence came your father's voice, and everything began well. In the late 1950s, television started moving. First to the living room, then into the kitchen. The set turned on converted that silence into an interruption of the program. The 3 seconds became 1, then half, then none. Tonight, when everyone is seated, say out loud, 3 seconds, and wait. There was something else at that table, however, something you took for granted your entire childhood. And when it broke, it was the first thing nobody knew how to name. Number 9. The chair that knew your body before you did. You sat down without thinking. The chair that had the same angle of light every night. The one that made that specific sound when you pulled it across the linoleum. The one that already carried the shape of your back marked into the upholstery. Your father at the head. Your mother at the opposite end. The rest in the order of always. When a cousin sat down without knowing in your seat, everyone noticed in silence, with a small, nameless alarm. In 1967, parenting manuals recommended the table without hierarchy as a sign of a modern family. The fixed seats became outdated from one year to the next. This week, one single dinner with each person in their place. No debate. One chair. And next to every chair, there was something else you took for granted. One more plate, with no name, with no owner. Number 8. The plate that waited for whoever had not been invited. You asked your grandmother, one night, who that extra place setting was for. It was laid out with the same care as the others. Nobody had ever sat there. She answered without lifting her eyes from the soup. For whoever comes. Not for anyone in particular. For anyone at all. Sometimes a neighbor came. Sometimes nobody. The table felt larger with that empty plate than with a full one. In November of 1947, Eleanor Roosevelt dedicated a national column to the silent guest, the plate set for the invisible hungry. Between 1965 and 1975, dinners stopped being cooked at home in abundant quantities, and the telephone put an end to the unexpected visit. The extra plate ran out of reasons to exist. Tonight, put one more place setting on the table. Don't explain it. Wait for someone to ask. In the kitchen, meanwhile, a hand was tracing something over the crust of warm bread. Number 7. The hand that signed the bread before cutting it. The sound of fresh-baked bread hitting the wooden cutting board. The dense, almost sweet smell. And your mother's hand that before reaching for the knife, traced a slow cross over the top crust, saying nothing. With the economy of movement of someone who has done something 10,000 times, you didn't remember it as a ritual. You remembered it as the automatic gesture of a hand that was holding a knife. That gesture is documented from the 6th century in the writings of Pope Gregory the Great. 1,400 years passed from hand to hand, with no books to mandate it. In 1952, industrial bread in a sealed bag surpassed bakery bread for the first time. By 1960, 80% of the bread in American homes arrived already sliced. 1,400 years of tradition brought down by a plastic bag in less than a decade. Buy a whole loaf this week. Stop for 3 seconds before you cut it. Some customs were passed down with the hands. Others were passed down with the face. And they were the most intimate. Number 6. The thumb that crossed your forehead when you could no longer feel it. You were almost asleep. That warm, heavy zone between thought and sleep. Without seeing it, you felt the thumb on your forehead. The sign of the cross traced slowly. It was the silent confirmation that someone had checked that you were still there. Your father came after turning off the lights of the house. Most nights, you didn't notice. You only slept better than you would have slept without that thumb. By 1970, the dominant parenting manuals had erased nighttime blessings from their pages. What had been for centuries the last gesture of the day became outdated in a decade. Tonight, when someone sleeps near you, place your thumb on their forehead for 3 seconds. No words. Before that silence, there was another one that organized the whole house for 1 hour every night. And it all depended on a single gesture, turning a dial until you heard the click. Number 5. The click that organized the whole house. Somebody walked over to the set, turned the dial, and you heard that dry, mechanical click. Then, immediate silence. Not empty silence. The silence filled with voices, forks, the noise from the kitchen still visible from the table. During that hour, the people present were the only thing there was to look at. So, without anyone saying it, everybody looked at each other's faces. In 1966, General Electric launched the first portable color television. By 2014, 59% of family dinners were happening with the television turned on. The exact number had reversed in 60 years. Without debate, tonight, turn the television off physically. Black screen. Something else had already happened in the kitchen before the first plate came off the stove. Something your mother did alone. Number 4. The prayer your mother said over the cooking pot before serving. As a child, you didn't see it. You sensed it, once or twice, from the kitchen doorway. Your mother's back bent over the burners. A moment when her body slowed down, different from the rest of her movements. You thought she was checking the salt. You didn't know she was praying. She never told you. It wasn't for you. It was earlier than the grace at the table. It happened alone, between "it's ready" and "come and eat." The silent prayer of the woman who had cooked for 3 hours for a family that would take 25 minutes to finish the pot. In the 1950s, more than half of American Catholic women prayed the rosary daily. often while peeling potatoes or stirring soup. The prayer over the pot was the last link of a continuous chain. That chain broke in 1969, when American kitchens started opening up to the living room with no dividing wall. The prayer over the pot required solitude. The open kitchen eliminated solitude structurally. Tomorrow, stop for 2 seconds over the still hot pot. Say only, "May it do good to whoever eats this." Your mother prayed over the pot. Your father prayed over your bed. What happened between those two spaces was the last thing to go. Number 3. The Sunday dinner that organized the entire week. The smell of Sunday morning was different from Saturdays. The roast in the oven since 10. The house with that humid warmth of a kitchen running since early. And the soft but real tension of having to be back before 2. It was inconceivable not to be. The Sunday table was the extended table, the good tablecloth, the plates that didn't come out on Tuesdays, grandmother arriving. Between 1963 and 1967, the state started dismantling the blue laws, the laws that prohibited commerce on Sunday. The stores opened. Weekend shifts became normal. Sunday stopped being structurally different from Saturday. And with that difference went the table. Choose one Sunday next month. Call somebody who doesn't live with you. Tell them, come to lunch on Sunday. No other context. Sunday organized the week. Something else, however, organized the evening of every single day. Number 2, the rosary that came before dinner and lasted longer than it did. Knees on the cold floor, your father's voice starting the mystery, and everyone's voice answering in that polyphonic murmur nobody quite led. Your grandmother's fingers moving over the beads with the precision of someone who no longer needs to count them. In the background, the smell of dinner arriving from the kitchen while the prayer was not yet over. In 1942, an Irish-American missionary named Patrick Peyton launched a phrase you would hear your entire life. The family that prays together stays together. In 1960, the average television time per American home crossed 5 hours daily for the first time. The rosary lasted 15 minutes, exactly the length of one episode. The competition was direct, silent, total. This evening, 3 minutes of silence before dinner, not in front of a screen. Every one of the 14 traditions you've heard had an object that held it up. They all depended, however, on something that was not an object. Number 1, and it is not a prayer. It is an hour, a fixed hour of the day when every member of the family was simultaneously in the same place, not by chance, because it had always been so, and so it would be tomorrow. That hour had no name. It was just the ground beneath your feet. The hand circle of number 14 could not close if nobody arrived at the same time. The voice from the head of the table in number 13 had nobody to address if the head was empty. The extra plate of number 8 waited for nobody if the table was never set. The Sunday dinner of number 3 could not exist if Sunday was the same as Monday. The 14 traditions did not stand on their own. They stood on the hour. Between 1960 and 1975, 3 forces converged. Mothers entered the labor market. Shifts extended to the weekend. And in 1967, Litton Industries launched the first low-cost home microwave. If food takes 2 minutes, every person can eat at a different moment. If every person eats at a different moment, there is no table. If there is no table, there are no table traditions. You did not lose grace. You did not lose the held hands. You did not lose the rosary or the extra plate or the blessing over the bread. You lost the hour. You lost the silent agreement that there was a moment of the day when all of you were simultaneously the same family. Everything else was the decoration of that moment. When the moment disappeared, the decoration had nowhere to hang. The question is not, how to recover a prayer. The question is whether you are able to recover an hour. Your family knew these traditions. Maybe not all 15, but somebody at your table cleared their throat before speaking to God, or closed the circle with a rough hand, or left an empty plate waiting. Tonight, choose one. Just one. The one that moved you the most. And tell me in the comments which one you are going to recover, and which one you remember from your own childhood. 10 years before the traditions you have heard today, there were 15 others, older still. Faith habits that were already disappearing by the time you arrived at the table for the first time. Customs that your parents practiced as children and stopped passing down without realizing it. All 15 are in the next video, waiting for you there.